Here at Quanta Services, we have a world-class safety program. At least that's what we believed, that's what we said, and that's what we showed in our metrics. You see, we would get to the end of the month, the end of the quarter, and even better, the end of the year. And we would be proud of our metrics. They were world-class, although I don't know what world-class means. They were industry leading. But seemingly, the very next day, after we would report those numbers, we'd have a significant event, a life-altering, a life-threatening, or a life-ending event. And I was standing there looking myself in the mirror saying, how could this be? How could this happen? So I went to work on the issue. I called some of you in the room. I read a lot of the books that are up here on the stage. I talked to anybody that would answer my phone call and asked, what's going on in my organization? My numbers are good, but they're still changing lives. What I'd come to find out is reducing my hand injuries is not reducing my fatalities. No matter how good I get with a TRIR, it doesn't mean my significant rates coming down. I worked on this for about a year. I talked to, as I said, anybody that would talk to me. And I started to form my new view or my new vision of what safety should look like, much of what we've talked about here over the last couple of days. I had an opportunity to be with our CEO. We attended a meeting in Charlotte, and it was a long meeting, and we were talking about our incident trends and what we were doing about them. And we no doubt talked about hand injuries and soft tissues with our client and what we were doing to address them. And you all have probably been in those kind of meetings, and the meeting was fine, nothing earth-shattering. But in the back of my mind, I knew there was something more, and I had this vision. So I had the opportunity that evening to fly back with our CEO, and I had 2.5 hours sitting next to him on the airplane. And we talked about our safety history. You see, he's 4th generation in this business, and he truly cares about the men and women doing the work. He comes from them, and he wants to protect them. I shared my new vision and where we wanted to go, how I thought we could get there. And by the time we landed, we kind of had an alignment on where we were going to go. Now, the one thing you should know about me, I'm a safety geek. Like, I get into this stuff. This is what I do. I'm passionate about it. I've dedicated my professional career to protecting the men and women actually doing the work. So we landed about 11:30 that night, and I was like geeked out. If you ever get in one of these, you got a new vision that was completely different than what we've ever done before. You had our CEO in alignment. He's saying go, challenged me and all of Quanta to lead our industry. I was pumped up and I couldn't sleep, right? So I get it, it's like 5 in the morning, I got coffee and I'm pacing back and forth, and there's one person I got to talk to, but it's 5 in the morning. It's probably too early. I got to 6 and I typed the number in. Got a call now. Well, it's 6. It's probably too early. I'm paced and I can't even get my mind straight. 7 o'clock comes, and that's it. I'm calling. I dial a phone. I call Kim Riddle. Kim Riddle is our vice president of HR. And she answers the phone and she says, Matt, what is it? Because you see, when safety and HR talk at 7 in the morning, it's typically not a good day, right? So she's a little startled by this. I was like, Kim, I got a question for you. Sure, Matt, what is it? I was like, Kim, just one question. It's going to be simple. Matt, what is your question? I said, Kim, are all of our employees human beings? And she said, oh, Matt, come on. I was like, we worked together now for a while, so she's kind of used to my sarcasm. I said, Kim, I need to know the answer to this question. And by this time, she'd made her way back into her home office, the kitchen table, and she put me on speaker. I was like, Kim, we got 55,000 employees around the globe. Are we paying anybody that's not a human being? And she went to work. I mean, there was paper shuffling. She's pounding the keyboard. I can hear all this going on in the background. And it only took like 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. She's a rock star, right? She came back and she said, I checked all 55,000 records. Come to find out, we only employ human beings. I said, thank you, Kim. That's all I needed to know. I hung up the phone, and we were off to change the way we do safety. All 55,000 of us and all of us in this room, we have one thing in common. We're all fallible. We all make mistakes. I'm like 6 or 7 in already this morning. I don't know about you. I screw stuff up all the time. So why is it when a mistake happens and someone gets hurt, we're surprised or even mad? Why is that? Well, it's because we expect perfection, but perfection's not reality. We all know that we're going to make mistakes. Perfection's not reality. We have to go through a paradigm shift. We have to understand it's not if, it's when. It's not if our employees screw it up, it's when they screw it up, right? And I'm really good at screwing stuff up. But when I screw stuff up nowadays, I get one of these, right? I get a backspace button, highlight, delete. You can right-click and it'll spell the words right? It's pretty cool. How do we get that capacity into our work in the field? I have capacity in my work in the office. And in fact, we accept it when I make mistakes. How do we get that capacity to our work in the field? Now, we can talk about numbers, right? I'll put our numbers up against anybody, our old traditional lagging indicators, right? And they continue to come down. But as I said, we were still having these life-changing, life-altering, and life-ending events. The thing that we got to realize is the absence of injuries does not mean the presence of safety. Absence of injuries does not mean the presence of safety. And we know this because we're still having incidents. We're still having these incidents in the industries. So we started thinking about why is this, and we look at a history of our profession, a very brief history of our profession. And you go back to the 1960s here in the U.S., far too many Americans were getting hurt, maimed, and killed in the workplace. So the government stepped in, right? And within just a little bit of time, they formed the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, the ones that we love so much, right? And within a short bit of time, we had rules-based safety, and it had an effect. Incidents came down, fatalities came down, but they didn't go away. Fast forward 20, 30 years, here comes behavioral-based safety. With behavioral-based safety, we're trying to fix the employee. Now, I think we can influence employee and influence behavior, but fix a human being? I don't think we're going to fix a human being. So rules-based safety and behavioral-based safety, in my opinion, played key roles to get us to where we are today. But they can't get us all the way. Why is that? Because we can't legislate failure out of work. I can't write a new rule and expect never to have that problem again. Nor can I eliminate error out of human beings. If I could, we would all be rich, right? We cannot eliminate error out of human beings. Now, we can talk about black line, blue line. I don't need to explain this a lot with this group. You all get this, but let's look at a blue line example that I talked to our people about. So I live in Houston, Texas, I live in the Woodlands, just north of Houston. Has anybody in the room ever driven in Houston? Oh yeah, it's fun, isn't it? So how I drive to work. I get on 45 South, I take it all the way to 610 West, I get off on Hidalgo exit, and I pull into the parking garage. How many times do you think that happens? Almost never, right? So what happens? I get on 45 South, Waze pops up and says there's a wreck at 1960. No problem, I'll jump on the Hardy Toll Road. I take the Hardy Toll Road down to 610 West. If anybody's familiar with the Houston transit system or the Houston highway system, where 610 West goes underneath 45, it goes from 25 lanes to 2. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. So traffic's backing up. So I safely go across 25 lanes of traffic. I take a left-hand exit. I get on 45 South again. I take 45 South to 10 West, take 10 West to 610 South. I take the Hidalgo exit, and I pull into the parking garage. Anything wrong with what I just did? No, there's nothing wrong with what I did. I'm in good equipment. I'm trained better than anybody else in the world to drive from my driveway to my parking spot. Nobody's trained better on that route than me, right? And I got rewarded. You see, I got to work the same time our CEO got to work. I was able to park his car. I carried his bag up to his office. I got him his first cup of coffee. He said I put too much sugar in it because he's kind of grouchy. But I got FaceTime with our CEO. I got rewarded for doing the blue line. It's a reward. Our employees in the field, just like me, are highly trained. They're probably trained better today than they've ever been trained in their careers, in our history of our industry. And they operate in a dynamic work environment. Constant changes coming at them every day, right? And they get rewarded too. Maybe they got back to the show up before traffic got bad. Maybe they got a pat on the back for being under budget. Maybe they got a financial bonus, I don't know, but they get rewarded too for managing that dynamic work, that blue line, each and every day. And it's all good, and we expect them to do it. And they're extremely good at doing it. However, as soon as someone gets hurt, we immediately change our response, right? So what do? Name, blame, shame, and retrain. And what we're really good at is writing a new safety rule. Anybody ever do this? Hell, I've done it for 25 years. I made a career out of it, right? We name the employee. We blame them. Poor decision, bad behavior, stupid activity, whatever it might be. We shame them because this makes everything better. So we make Billy go to every safety meeting in the region and stand up amongst his peers and tell him how stupid he was for making that poor choice. And when we're high technology now, so sometimes we'll even record it so we can make Billy go viral in this mistake, right? And then we retrain everybody because if Billy was able to make a stupid mistake, everybody's probably going to make a stupid mistake. And then we write more rules, right? We go back and we write rule number 781 on page 1021 of the safety manual. I go back to my office, I put my feet up on the desk, say I fixed that, blamed the employee, made the employee tell everybody else not to be stupid, retrained everybody because it makes everything better, and I wrote a new rule. Life is good. Life is good. That's what we do. What we really tried to do is train a human being or human beings not to be human. We tried to train them and expect perfection, but it's not reality. This is the latest printing of the Quanta Safety Manual. I just took it last week. Old pair of shoes, but just took it last week. I'm somewhat kidding, but that's what it looks like. Nobody's ever read it. Do you think we need more rules? Do you think our employees don't care? They want to go home every night, just like you and I. Do you think they don't care? I don't think that's the problem. Remember this, writing another rule doesn't prevent error. Asking employees to care more does not prevent mistakes. Asking employees to care more will not prevent mistakes. What we have to do is look at the context of the work and build capacity in for failure. Now, I'm a Ford guy. I'm sorry, my friends from Tesla. I know. Don't throw anything at me. Hey, when I grew up, where I grew up, we had an allegiance to an auto manufacturer long before Tesla was around, right? And we were a Ford family. My father, he still farms a little bit today. All of his tractors are Fords. All of his implements are New Holland because Ford owns New Holland. I only drive Fords. It runs pretty deep. Everybody here besides the Tesla group, they're Ford people, right? Right. Okay, good. We're all on the same page. But I think there's something we can learn from Ford, and I guess the rest of the auto manufacturers as well in that industry. When you think about rules-based safety, we have plenty of rules when we drive, right? We have stoplights, speed limits, white lines, yellow lines, double yellow lines. We have turning lanes. I mean, we're well regulated when it comes to driving. And imagine the chaos if we didn't have those basic rules. And they have an effect, right? They cause less incidents. They made us get better. They had an effect, but they didn't go away. We didn't end all traffic accidents because we implemented rules. So we have behavioral-based safety, right? When you're 14, 15, 16, whatever it is in your area, you get a permit and you drive with mom and dad, and we try to teach you all these behaviors, and we screw all of our kids up, so when they get to the workplace, we do it again with behavioral-based safety, or defensive driving, and we're 10 and 2, and we're stopping distance and following distance and checking our mirrors, and we're doing all that stuff, that defensive driving stuff that we try to fix our people. And it has an effect. We got better, but our events didn't go away. We got better, but our events didn't go away. So you look at what they did for prevention. The auto industry has done some really cool stuff around preventing accidents, and they continue to innovate. Now, if I go to change lanes without my turn signal on, right, or if I go left to center without my turn signal on, my steering wheel vibrates. That's pretty cool, right? If somebody's in my blind spot, there's a light in my mirror flashing at me. I put it in reverse to go back up. It's a camera, right? A TV screen on my dash. I got eyes in the back of my head, and they continue to get better at this and look at ways to prevent incidents. But Ford knows it's not if, it's when I screw up. Even with all this prevention, it's still not if, it's when. They made a paradigm shift. So they stopped relying on me being perfect, and they put capacity in my truck. So what's capacity look like in my truck? It's something like this, right? In the cab of my F-150, there's something like 12 or 14 airbags. The frame of the truck now is aluminum. It's designed to crumple up. The event still happens, but it builds a cocoon around me almost. The airbags come out. The event still happens, but I have the capacity to walk away, or the capacity to fail safely. We got to change our focus. It's not who drove the failure, it's what drove the failure. We have to switch from who to what. Prevention will always be at our foundation. We never want to have the event. We're always going to try to prevent it. But we must plan and execute work as if failure is going to happen today. People are going to make mistakes. We all have to get over that. They're going to screw it up. We must build capacity into our work so our employees can return home safely each and every day, even after a release of energy. With this approach, I believe, I'll stand here and tell you, I believe we can eliminate life-altering, life-threatening, and life-ending events. I'm not a zero guy. I'll never tell you I'm going to stop every cut finger, every twisted knee, but I am telling you I'm on a mission that we can eliminate, we can stop changing lives in our industry. So this was a paradigm shift that we had to go through. All of us at our company had to go through this. We had to start thinking about it differently. We've all seen this chart. Our TRIR was coming down. Our significant incidents weren't. In fact, you could argue that in a lot of cases they were going up. So where are we right now? Life-threatening, life-altering, life-ending events still occur in our industries. What we know, and I want you to think about this because this is the basis of our program. Significant events are a result of a release or transfer of energy that the body can't absorb. And I'll put my asterisks there. I know there's health stuff out there. There's asbestos. There's some of that stuff. I'm talking about life-changing, life-altering, life-ending, immediate reaction events. Those are the ones that we see in our industry that are changing. When energy is released, the body can't absorb it. So where are we going? We can eliminate life-threatening, life-altering, and life-ending events. How do we get there? When high energy exposure exists, we have to have capacity built in to absorb failure without changing a life. Because we made the paradigm shift that we only employ human beings, they're going to fail. We have to give them the capacity to fail safely. So as we started building the capacity model and what we'll get into next, these were our North Stars. You'll see up here, we can't expect different results using the same approach. Our CEO tells me this all the time. We can't do what we've done for the last 50 years and think we're going to eliminate significant events. We did a good job over the last 50 years driving down TRIR, but we haven't done so great at eliminating. We have to change what we're doing. We need to build a sustainable system integrated over time. No more is this just a PowerPoint presentation that I stand up at 7 in the morning at the bed of the truck or at the conference room or at the monthly safety meeting, roll out 10 slides and say, human performance is out there. It has to be a sustainable system. You have to have soak time. You have to allow your employees to do a paradigm shift just like our management team did. We can't build check-the-box training. It has to have adult curriculum writers behind it, learning concepts. It has to be how adults learn. I've done a lot of training in my life. I thought I was good at it. Once I figured out what adult education really was and how to deliver it, I'm horrible at it. We need to build an approach that's practical, meaningful, and consumable. And I say the word consumable a lot. If you've heard me talk before, everything that we do has to be consumable at the front line level. If I do anything that's not consumable, and I mean anything that's not consumable at the front line level, and I don't care if I'm talking to the board of directors or I'm talking to a new apprentice, if it's not consumable at the front line employee level, I need to stop doing it. We can't abandon accountability and prevention methods or measures. We're not getting rid of accountability. We're getting better at it. We're putting accountability where it should be. Why is the system failure? That's where accountability has to be. And we continually try to prevent the release of energy. When energy is released, it's a bad day. But we believe we can have an operational upset without changing a life. And we need to accept human beings are going to make mistakes, but failures can occur safely.
It's not acceptable for someone to get hurt on a Quanta job. The company has concentrated on better numbers, but we're mainly concerned with the stuff that kills you. We can't keep going the same route we're going today. It won't work. We're world class. We do things right. It's just taking the next step to say no more. We've got to think about safety differently.
Most of us have spent our careers thinking about safety a certain way. If no incidents occur, we would say work was safe. But what about the points that barely avoided catastrophe? Is that work safe or is it luck? During high-risk work, one wrong move could create a serious incident. We must ask ourselves, when nothing is happening, what is happening? We want to redefine the way we think about safety at Quanta. We want to plan and execute work as if failure will happen today. We understand that how we imagine work taking place is different from how work actually takes place. When you walk onto the job site, we want you to identify the that kills you and plan your work to absorb failure without hurting anyone.
When we talk about the capacity model, it's really a redundant model where it doesn't allow failure, or if you have failure, we want enough capacity built in where you don't get hurt. The model itself is framework for our operating units to execute their safety program in a different manner than they ever have. We're not trying to change it. We're trying to say, here's the guidelines that sit on top of it that allows the tools for our operating units to be successful in implementing their programs. We want enough capacity built in where you don't get hurt.
Prevention will always be important, but nobody's perfect. No matter how much we try to prevent failure, failure is going to happen. The way we respond to failure is important. Many are quick to blame and punish, but with this model, we want to change the way we respond. We want to move towards learning and improving. Our employees are the best source of learning. If we want to understand the context around the event, we have to start discussing how the failure happened instead of why it happened. Asking why makes us look for someone to blame, but asking how focuses our attention on what factors caused the event.
The safety department is not the police. Safety's there to make sure you are better than you were yesterday because we've given you tools and ways that we believe will eliminate the incident.
The capacity model is how we think about safety. As you move through this content, we'll talk about the 7 human performance principles that set the foundation, and then each piece of the model itself. Shit that kills you are sticky, and the energy wheel are tools to guide the crews in building capacity for failure on the job site. With absolute controls, we want to empower the worker not to start work until the controls are in place. Learning is a constructive and positive approach to looking at events and improving safety. Some of these concepts are already transforming safety in other industries. These ideas will take some time to filter through the organization, but we're excited about the future and our ability to eliminate significant events.
As Quanta implements the capacity model, it's really for our workforce to make sure every day you follow the model. You're there by yourself many times. If we go out and we follow the capacity model, we believe it will eliminate all major incidents within this organization, and we will put all the resources necessary to make that happen. I ask for your support because we can't do it alone. We're a family and we want you to go home to yours, and we believe this model will take us home.
So that's the capacity model overview. Let's dive into it a little bit. I had to change this slide after yesterday. Tesla and Lori came up with 6, so I had to one-up them. We got 7. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. You guys are familiar with these. But number 1, right? People make mistakes. We have to understand that. That's a big change for us in the workforce. Violations are rarely, if ever, malicious. Blame fixes nothing. That doesn't mean we don't have malicious violations. It means we have a human resource problem. We need to get those people out of the business. Failures can occur safely. It's not if, it's when. That's the paradigm shift that our entire organization is going through. We're not through it, we're going through it. Number 6, management's response to failure matters. I probably spend most of my time right there. We're an industry and we're an organization that if you fell off a pole, we'd fire you before you hit the ground, and we'd blame you for doing it. That's what we did. And in fact, we still have a lot of old school managers that still try to do that. And I'm constantly coaching. Let's catch our breath, take a pause. Let's really focus on 7. Let's become a learning organization. Let's learn what's going on. Let's talk about context, right? That's what we do. We spend a lot of time here. So if you look at the elements of the capacity model, foundationally, you have the Quanta human performance principles, and then you have sticky shit that kills you. We're going to dive into that next. And you all got sticky stickers on your tables out there. The Quanta energy wheel, of course, we didn't develop the energy wheel. We kind of grabbed it as a job briefing tool. Sticky controls framework. As you saw in the video, that video isn't updated. We used to call it absolute controls, but our workforce said they're sticky controls. And in fact, they call the energy wheel the sticky wheel. So I just said, I'm not fighting that. We're going to call them sticky controls, right? And then operational learning last. So let's talk about sticky.
Building capacity to fail safely is the responsibility of everyone involved in our work. This includes everyone in our operating units, from the president to the newest member of the team. Whether you're bidding work, engineering, managing crews, or working on site, understanding the shit that kills you, or sticky, is the first step in building capacity for failure. Sticky is any energy that, if released, has the potential to be life-threatening, life-altering, or fatal. This includes falls from elevated surfaces, electrical contact, rigging failures, struck by equipment, and many others. Our first defense is always prevention. We'll always try to plan our work to prevent errors from occurring, but we know that despite our best efforts, failures will always happen. So we will have to plan our work with controls that will allow these failures to happen safely. The idea is that we're thinking through our tasks, identifying sticky energies, and building a plan to absorb failure as if failure will happen today. In the capacity model, sticky events occur when there is failure to prevent the release of energy. Sticky actual is an actual injury where someone was killed or seriously injured. Sticky potential is when energy was released and no one was hurt. Not because controls were in place, we just got lucky. Sticky success is when an event happens, but no one was hurt because controls were in place to build capacity. The difference between sticky success and sticky potential is the difference between being good and being lucky. Identifying the that kills you through discussions on the job site is one of the most important steps in creating capacity. Sticky discussions should be part of the job briefing, but can also be informal chats focused on identifying sticky situations throughout the task. Sticky discussions should be focused around 3 questions. What's sticky on your job site? When a sticky event happens, what will protect you and the crew? And lastly, is that enough protection or do you need more? These questions are meant to focus crews on the that kills you on the job site. We want you to have healthy unease with your work so you're more focused on looking out for each other's safety. Sticky discussions are a big deal. Building capacity is about thinking critically, communicating effectively, and taking action. It's not if failure happens, it's about having the capacity to succeed when failure happens.
So sticky and sticky discussions. If you don't take anything else out of anything that I say, take this right here. Whether you implement it or integrate it into your organization, you can personally do it. When you do a crew observation or you're talking to the frontline workers, and the first thing you say is, hey, let me talk to you about the shit that can kill you with this task. Or you tell me, what's the shit that can kill you with this task? And we go through that paradigm shift. It's not if, it's when energy is released. What's going to protect you and your crew? That's that capacity side, right? That's our controls. And then ask the question, is that enough? If we get these 3 questions right each and every day, everyone's going to the baseball game this weekend. We're all going to watch our kids grow up. It's really as simple as these 3 questions. Not only is it as simple as these 3 questions for your crew, but it changes the interaction that you have with the crew as a professional. No longer am I coming out and saying, hey, your wheel chocks, your truck's dirty, you have cloth gloves on, you should have leather gloves on, right? And I'm certainly not coming out and saying, hey, let's talk about our SIF program. I'm trying to eliminate the term SIF out of our organization. Because as soon as I talk to my employees about SIF program, they're going to say, geez, you went to that learning conference last week, didn't you? But as soon as I say sticky, they get it. The words we use matter. What's the shit that's going to kill you? What are we doing about it? And is that enough? We get those questions right, we're all going to the baseball game. You heard David in the video talk about events. These are only 3 events that get communicated quanta-wide. Sticky actuals, where we actually had a life-altering, life-threatening, or life-ending event. Sticky potentials, where we had a release of energy. It was high enough that it could have changed somebody's life. We did not have our controls in place. We just got lucky. And sticky success is an event where controls were in place, we absorbed failure, and we didn't change somebody's life. Are we good or are we lucky? It's always interesting when you start communicating sticky successes. So let's talk about energy wheel real quick.
At Quanta, we recognize that the way we imagine work taking place is different from how work actually takes place. For example, when you get a job plan, it's written one way, but many factors on the job site often change how that task is actually executed. As an expert in your craft, we trust you to master sticky and, when necessary, modify the plan to build capacity. The job briefing is one of the most important times to build capacity with your crew. Using the energy wheel as a guide, focus your conversations on sticky and how you can absorb failure as if it's going to happen today. With your crew, review the common sources of sticky found on the energy wheel, identify what sources are nearby, and how you'll control and absorb the energy when released. Use the energy wheel every time work changes to identify new sticky hazards. According to a study from the University of Colorado, workers were only able to identify 45% of hazards present on the job site. This is alarming, but with the right tools, we have the ability to be much better. The energy wheel is an effective method of hazard identification. We want employees to have important conversations around sticky so crews are communicating effectively and building capacity for failure into their work.
So the energy wheel, real quick on job briefings. So in my opinion, in the construction industry and specifically the utility construction industry, we have ruined the job briefing process. Us as well-minded, intended, and I took place of this, I was part of it, we ruined the job briefing process by post-event activity. Question number one, give me your JHA, job briefing, JSA, whatever it is. We review it with a critical eye. You didn't write down that trip hazard over there, here's 2 days off. Our job briefings now have gotten multiple pages, right? And our foremen, our frontline leaders, are trying to write down everything they could ever imagine happening today. And they're writing it down for you and I. They are no longer using it as a work planning tool. They're writing it down so they don't get in trouble for an audit. I'm a safety geek, I said that at the beginning. I'm at a 6:30 a.m. job briefing. You get to page 2, I'm texting my wife. What's going on at home, kids getting off. What do you think our apprentices are doing? 2 things we're trying to do. Use the energy wheel, use a sticky discussion, refine the job briefing down to what's really important. We have client requirements, we have all this other stuff in the OSHA regulation. You gotta do some of that compliance stuff, I got it. But right before we go to work, let's look at the energy wheel, let's ask the 3 questions, let's understand if we got capacity, and let's go to work.
The Sticky Controls framework builds capacity for failure by providing a consistent, disciplined approach to identifying sticky hazards and implementing sticky controls. The framework helps organizations identify the critical tasks they perform and the minimum controls that must be in place before work begins. The Sticky Controls framework is a collaborative process between operational leadership and those who do the work. There are 3 elements of the Sticky Controls framework that help our organizations build capacity for failure. First, identify critical tasks and the sticky hazards associated with each of those tasks. Second, establish a standard set of sticky controls for each of those critical tasks. And third, develop and implement sticky control verification and monitoring activities. Critical tasks are tasks or activities that expose people to hazards that, if not properly controlled, could result in a life-threatening, life-altering, or life-ending event. We call these types of hazards sticky hazards. Examples of critical tasks include lifting, hoisting, and rigging, working with vehicles or equipment, trenching and excavating, working at heights, working on electrical equipment, and working in confined spaces. Sticky controls are identified for each critical task an organization performs. Although organizations perform similar critical tasks, there will be critical tasks that are unique to an organization. This can be due to the type of work or the unique jobs and activities they perform. Sticky control and verifications and monitoring activities are the 3rd element and are a critical component of the Sticky Controls framework. Verification activities focus on ensuring all sticky controls are in place and functioning before work begins, while monitoring activities focus on ensuring sticky controls remain in place and functioning throughout critical task activities. During monitoring activities, leaders will also have conversations with their employees to gain an understanding of their awareness of the sticky hazards in their work environment and the sticky controls that are being used. This disciplined approach to how we plan, execute, and learn from work prepares us for when, not if, a failure occurs. The Sticky Controls framework helps ensure that our employees have the capacity to fail safely when a failure happens.
So when we talk about controls, we talk about 2 different controls, preventative control and mitigative control. Preventative control, what stops the bad shit from happening? Mitigative control, once the bad shit happens, what's going to protect you and your crew? That's the capacity question. Those are the 2 types of controls we're talking about. So we'll quickly hit on operational learnings here.
This is an improvement strategy that changes the way we look at success and failure. Traditionally, companies only focus on failures by conducting investigations after an incident. This often includes swift, negative action that blames and punishes the worker and rarely leads to improving safety. If If we want to get better, we have to stop just looking at incidents. By creating learning teams, we're going to start looking at all kinds of work, both success and failure. When success happens, we'll deploy a learning team to understand everything that went right so we can replicate those lessons learned on other job sites. And when failure happens, we're changing our approach from a judgment mindset to a learning mindset. Practically, this is changing our question from who failed to what failed. We know humans are going to fail. If we want to learn from incidents, we have to start learning how to design our systems around human error instead of trying to design human error out of our systems. This will be an ongoing process, and our learning teams will be at the forefront. While our learning teams won't touch every employee, we want every employee to know and understand what they are and why they're important. At the end of the day, our safety is only as good as the systems we have in place. With learning teams, our goal is always stepping forward and becoming better in improving safety for our employees.
So operational learning and learning teams, I know we've talked a lot about this. I don't know that we're much different than some of what you all are doing, but we're really focused on getting these into our organization. We have curriculum, we train facilitators. Across our organization, we're probably 24 learning teams in. We have some really cool ones that we're working on presentations now for events like this that walk you through how they got started, what our outcomes were. So stay tuned for that. We're pretty familiar with this slide. You know, we're not trying to find fault or blame. We're not investigating in the traditional sense. We're not really looking for root causes. And we assume that issues stem from systems. So we spend a lot of time on these. So the capacity model, and Charles, I have no idea how I am on time, so I apologize if I'm running late or long.
6 minutes.
Perfect. So what sets us apart? It's consumable. Everything we do is consumable at the frontline level. It's got to be sustainable. This is not one PowerPoint presentation. It has to be sustainable. It's field focused. Has to be field focused. When you take Sticky to the field, when we took Sticky to the field, it spread across our workforce like nothing ever we have done. And it's practical and enabled by leadership. So I got the last thing here, capacity model is not about changing or fixing the workforce. Building capacity to fail safely into our work. That's what we're focused on, bringing our workers home each and every day. I got one last short video, and then I'll answer some questions.
As a company, it's really the heartbeat of who we are is the safety of our people and our employees. Certainly, if you go back 50 years and you continue to do the same thing over and over again, you're gonna get the same result. And it's not good. People were not going home the way they came.
For decades, folks in our industry talked about the goal of zero incidents with themes like Target Zero. Different programs helped reduce overall number of injuries, but had little impact on the number of life-threatening, life-altering, and life-ending events. We know people make mistakes, and the reality is that work can't be performed with 100% perfection 100% of the time. So we've shifted our focus to building capacity for failure anytime high energy is present. And we believe that through this lens, it's possible to eliminate life-threatening, life-altering, and life-ending events within Quanta and the industries we serve.
Quanta's capacity model is built on human performance principles, which really lay the foundation for changing how we look at safety. The way we plan our work is totally different from how work actually takes place. And when incidents do occur, they're often a result of normal deviations or adjustments. And the plan is just that, it's a plan. It can't account for the varying conditions our crews face each day. When mistakes do occur, they're rarely malicious. So rather than blaming, Quanta has built a culture of learning which helps us better understand the work and develop ways to improve. The capacity model is not a program, it's not an initiative, it's an entirely different way of looking at how we plan, execute, and learn from our work. And our craft-skilled workforce is at the center.
What we've done is we've given a platform for the continued growth of our safety culture. We don't compete in safety, we collaborate in safety. We certainly view it as industry changing and industry leading, and want our customers and our competition and the industry to embrace it.
So that was a little bit of a repeat, but that's kind of our midway point. We produced that video to reinforce the executive message to get out to the workforce. So with that, I'm open to questions.
Questions? We have time for one or two? I have one over here.
So as you're building this capacity, what do you do when you hit those moments where capacity is high as you can reasonably achieve? And you're relying on your human beings to then make up the difference.
So we try never to be one control away from failure. And if our only control is the human being not making a mistake, we really have to step back and look at that task and ask ourselves, should we be doing it? Are there a couple out there? Yes. We really, and it's not a control, but we really focus on training, focus on really good communication, really good proceduralizing that work. Yep. Those are very few and far between.
Got one here?
Okay, so moving from the historical lagging indicators to this, how are we measuring success?
How are we measuring success? Reduction in significant, what we call sticky actuals, and the increase in sticky potentials and successes. So we have taken TRIR out of all executive incentives. We got it through the compensation committee, and we're now only measuring, as far as compensation goes, sticky actuals for incentive basis. We still have all our old data, we just don't use it.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.